This is Matt Russell, and welcome to the DailyFX Forum.
So here are the four pairs that I will be discussing this evening: the Euro Pound, the Aussie Kiwi, the Pound Swiss, and the Euro Swiss. So let's go ahead and pull up the charts. The first chart is the Euro Pound. If you recall, during yesterday's report, I added this tentative resistance line to the pair. I didn't like the fact that we did have penetration up here. With that being said, I did mention a potential trade setup if prices do brush up against that line. And again, I wanted prices to actually hit the line. We could see that prices did come within a few pips, but not close enough for me personally to justify an entry. So I still like this line right now, and over the next 24 to 48 hours, if prices do come back up and gently touch this line, I would look to enter the trade here on the short side with a stop about 20 to 30 pips above the line, and again trying to make about 20-30 pips in profit. The next chart is the Aussie Kiwi, and during yesterday's report I mentioned that if you're not prepared for prices to come back down to that 26.85 area, to exit the trade immediately, and that is what has happened. Yesterday, after the RBA announced the interest rate decision, we could see prices did come back down, left behind a long wick. When I did mention that trade, and again, it was a tentative trade idea, I did mention about a 20-30 pip stop, so there's definitely a possibility that you still might be in this trade as prices only came down to about the 26.62 area. So moving forward right now, I still like my assumption that prices are going to make it up near that 129 figure. I would move the stop down a little bit beneath this low right here. Let me get the exact price point that I am going to hold a bullish bias against. The low of that candle, 26.61. So maybe a stop about the 26.50 area. And again, we might wait for prices to come back a little bit down from where they are right now, about 27.38. I would need an entry maybe near that 127 figure exactly, and place again about a 50 pip stop or so. So over the next 24 to 48 hours, we might look for prices to come down near that 27 figure, where we might look to enter and again place a stop near 26.50. The next chart is the Pound Swiss, and again this is just the inverse of that Euro Pound. The only thing is that the levels are not as defined. What I would mention here is that I do like these long wicks on the downside, but I did mention during yesterday's report we had this doji candle and prices did take out that doji by just a few pips. Again, I would favor the Euro Pound only because the line is a little bit cleaner at this point. If you're going to enter any trades, it would be short Euro Pound, not long Pound Swiss, as these pairs are inversely correlated. The next chart is the Euro Swiss, and again, not much has changed here. I'm sort of on the sidelines on this pair, but again, I do like the symmetry of this pattern here. Prices right now directly in the middle of the range, and as I mentioned during yesterday's report, looking for at least a shorter term daily range to form here. 51.31 on the upside, and again this level down here is just above that 150 figure, 150.09. And again, with prices in the middle of the range, no entries right now, but over the next 24 to 48 hours we might look for prices to move to resistance or support respectively. The last chart is the Euro Aussie, and as I mentioned during yesterday's report, I wanted to give this another 24 hours only because I had lost on this trade right here as prices did take out the high of that doji candle, and I'm glad I did wait those 24 hours because we could see prices did come and close back beneath this shorter term daily support line. So moving forward now, and in my mind's eye, I still see prices coming back down to just beneath that 161 figure at the very least for this inverse head and shoulder pattern to possibly take shape. So moving forward now, this is what I am looking at personally. I might look for prices to come back and test the previous support line from the opposite side, where it might now act as resistance. But again, I would need prices to actually come up and touch that line for the most favorable risk reward entry. I might look to place a stop maybe about 50-75 pips above the line if prices do indeed touch it. And again, this is something that we can monitor over the next 24 to 48 hours. Again, my name is Matt Russell, and please stay tuned for a preview of the DailyFX. I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome you all to the DailyFX forums. I want to go through the process of how I personally access the forums and how maybe you at home, if you want to access the forums in the future, might do so. The first thing you would do is go to www.dailyfx.com, and that will bring up, obviously, dailyfx.com, and usually there on the upper right hand corner I'll go ahead and click on where it says forum, and that will bring up the first page of the forums. And this view, I personally don't use this view, but this view actually shows you the most recent posts on all the threads within the different sections and a little detail about those posts, so you can read through and see if there's something catches your interest. But but personally I go ahead and just click on forums and view them in the more traditional sense. Now these are different threads within the forum. There's a section on education such as DailyFX course instructor tips, which would be good for newer traders, and then for more advanced traders. And I just want to go ahead, personally the way I use the forums is I would go through the individual threads, just looking for trade ideas, maybe looking at charts, looking at certain lines that maybe I didn't put up on my chart, but another trader might have put up on their chart. I tend to shy away from using direct trade recommendations from other forum members, but it helps me to sort of even out my analysis, make sure that I'm seeing things with the right mind in terms of I might be missing stuff that other traders can see, and that's my personal way of using the forum. Every trader is going to be a little bit different in how they use it. So if you want to ask questions, if you want to become an active participant of the members, you would have to go ahead and register. So that's what I'm going to go through now, is the registration process. So assuming you're brand new to the forums, or maybe you've been here a few times and you're not really sure how it works, so I just want to walk through again the registration process. This would be the front page where you would access, or the previous page. You'd have the same little box here on the left hand side. My username and password are already filled out here, but assuming you're a new member, you would click on where it says register, and that will bring up the registration page. If you give me one moment here while my browser loads. And actually first we're going to have some terms of service and DailyFX forum rules. I do suggest reading through the forum rules. Obviously, profanity and spam and things like that are not allowed, but it also gives you insight on how to use the forum and how different traders can use it, in terms of their individual needs. So you would go down to the bottom there. You'd click on where it says I have read all the rules, and then you would go ahead to the register, the formal registration page, and that will bring up here. And you can go ahead and select the username, and how about we'll use 4x, and that name is already in use, so maybe add a few more x's there. Again, it really, your individual username is up to you, and you go ahead and fill in your password, your email address. Now the most difficult aspect of registration for the DailyFX forums will be figuring out these letters in the box here. Now I'm a semi-intelligent person, but I have a very difficult time figuring out which letters and numbers to use. Now there is a reason for this madness. It helps with security, but I would suggest just going ahead and keep on clicking that refresh image until something comes through that you can actually identify and see. Then you can go ahead and enter your birthday, but you can decide whether or not to display that to other forum members. And then also, if you were referred by somebody, you can enter that information there. The time zone, that should default to your computer, but you should double check and make sure. And then you can opt in, and I would suggest opting in for these emails in terms if the administrators want to go ahead and send you some notices about the forum, and then you would complete registration. Now what happens is they would send you an email to the email address that you put up here, and that email will include a link, and all you would have to do is go ahead and click on that link, and that link will bring you inside the forum, and you would now be a member of the DailyFX forums. Again, this is Matt Russell. Thanks for listening.